Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by the Wealth Club. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I've got Dave Knight here with me today, and he is a full-time police officer. He's the founder of the 911wealthnetwork.com. He is the host of the First Responders Wealth Network REI podcast. And outside the workplace, he's been able to grow his rental income portfolio by utilizing various strategies in Canada as well as across the US. And he is on a mission to help others educate themselves and be inspired to invest in real estate. And he also offers training courses at the 911wealthnetwork.com. More importantly, he wants people to take action so that they can gain confidence investing passively and actively through real estate. So thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
No problem. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I know it was a long time coming, so I'm glad to get this going and have a good chat.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So obviously you've kind of gone down that path by being a police officer. Where did real estate really come into the picture for you?
Kind of fell kind of accidentally, just naturally progressed. It was kind of a slow moving vehicle for me anyway. I graduated university and then had some capital saved up. I was always working through school and whatnot, so I was able to get a down payment on a townhouse in Burlington, actually.
Yeah.
And then, but I wasn't really able to buy all my furniture, and it was still going to be a lot for me. But somehow I was able to co-sign and get in there.
Yeah.
So I rented it out right off the bat, and then it was just the process of, I was almost a landlord right from the beginning. So, and I didn't really know what the heck I was doing, but so yeah, like, I mean, I can get into my whole story of how it transpired, but essentially it just started off as, accidental of, I can't afford this, so I'm going to get someone in there, and now I'm a landlord.
Yeah. No, so then where did you accelerate things from there? So I think for everybody, it starts with that first property, and sometimes people like that's all they do. But obviously you've expanded it to a lot of different things. So can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think it all started, we're talking off air a little bit of, how you get educated and whatnot, but I just stumbled across, it was a 3-day boot camp event in Ontario here. It was just like drinking from a fire hose, where they're throwing all these strategies and tactics and ways that you can invest. And it was just like, whoa, this is like crazy. There's a whole nother world out there.
Yeah.
All I knew at the time was, maybe save up 20% and put it down, and hopefully it cash flows and whatnot. So that kind of started way back, I don't know, 2016 or something. So at that time, I had my own business. I had a residential painting company. So I was in the transition of getting into the police service. So my job got cut. So I was open to different ways to create income and whatnot. And then had people even live with me at sometimes. It was a bit of a revolving door. So I was house hacking, I guess, was the terminology. I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. But and then you start again learning about strategies, ways to invest, how to leverage properly, how to force appreciation, how to use private capital to get into these type of investments and whatnot. And the BRRRR strategy, that was a big one. So eventually it evolved just learning how to tap into my equity of my home, where luckily we had a good run, so learning about that. And so I was able to get my second property, move into the new one, and then rent out the old one. And then after that, started learning about the BRRRR strategy. So I started buying properties in Hamilton, converting them into 2, 3, 4 units. And so that's kind of where my bread and butter was for several years before pivoting probably till about last year, 2 years ago, when obviously a lot of things changed and the same strategies weren't working. So to fast track now, I'm getting into new development and some Section 8 stuff down in the US, which we can talk about. But yeah, so it's been a wild progression. And during that, I was actually I genuinely loved real estate. I thought it was really, something that I never grew up with, never talked about at the dinner table kind of thing. So I loved sharing what I was learning and had a passion for it. I was a big podcast guy, so I started my podcast and just sharing my information that I was learning, just like I'm having a conversation with you. I'd get people on and I'd ask them 101 questions, and I'd just post it and share it. And, I was getting almost free education all these years. So
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt too with the guests that I've interviewed, is like it's such a good learning experience for me as well, right? So it's
Right.
to be able to share that for everybody else. But for someone that could be listening that doesn't know, can you talk a little bit about what the BRRRR strategy is
Mhm.
and why it worked so well before and why it's not working as well now?
For sure. If you're paying attention to what's going on in the world, obviously things have changed. So, whether it be the, global economic, micro, macro, interest rates, which obviously have a direct correlation of, prices and people ability to qualify for loans and whatnot.
Yeah.
So basically the BRRRR strategy is buy, rent, renovate, and repeat. So you can,
You forgot one.
oh,
Refinance.
sure. Oh yeah, refinance at the end. That's the
How
most
do you get
important
that money
step.
out of there?
That's the most. See, you can tell it's been a year or two.
Yeah,
So,
all
but
good.
yeah, so the BRRRR strategy, like probably one of the most powerful processes, and like people threw an acronym on it, it's BRRRR, but honestly, it's been around forever. It's
Yeah.
just that I think bigger pockets threw something on it and it caught some steam. So,
Made
but
it
at the end
sound
of the
really cool.
yeah, yeah, and it does. I mean, it was kind of a buzzword, right?
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, you're buying an asset or a property, you're renovating it, so you're fixing it up, and you're adding value to it, whether it be you're adding units, whether you're adding character or quality,
yeah,
and in the eyes of the bank, they obviously traditionally they'll see that as adding value or forcing
yeah,
appreciation,
yeah,
and then you're refinancing that last R I forgot, which is the most important, and you're essentially hopefully depending you got your numbers right and you're dialed in, you can on a perfect BRRRR you could
yeah,
actually take all that equity that you've been put into the property and refinance, so you could technically have none of your own dollars into the property.
yeah,
So that perfect BRRRR was essentially what I was doing, plus I was also flipping, so
yeah.
I kind of had a double exit strategy. But
Yeah, and I think those are two things to think in parallel, because when you're flipping, you're obviously selling the property. So there is a
Mhm.
different tax implication on that. When
Mhm.
you are doing the BRRRR strategy, obviously when you refinance, you're able to take that money out tax free. So I think that's
Right.
really important for someone that is considering that strategy, especially if they are in a higher income career or something like that, that you
Yep.
want to be very mindful of what those taxes could look like on yourself, depending on what your corporate structure is like, or if it's in your personal name.
For sure. And a lot of people, you know, you got to figure out what you want to do. Like, do you want to hold on to these assets, and like you said, you got to figure out what
Yeah,
your tax situation is. And if you want to be a landlord or not,
yeah,
like there's a lot of people at that time. What I was actually doing is I was flipping, and then I was taking my capital and I was doing some private lending.
yeah,
So, but yeah, you can do tax deferred. You refinance it and you defer that tax. You're not paying anything, especially if you're getting something in the pocket. And there's nothing better than owning a $1 million
yeah,
asset, or whatever, wherever your market is, and with zero of your own money, it's
yeah.
cash flowing, you're holding on to it, it's appreciating over time, and that's that true infinite returns that
Yeah.
also you should be aware of.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I mean, there's so many different things out there that you can consider. I think you just have to look at the bigger picture for yourself and also understand what your exit strategies are going to be like. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you would have experienced as you started to diversify and expand your portfolio?
Yeah, I think on a high level, I think it's important to realize that the market can change. I think, I consider myself a newer investor compared to some of these guys I go in a room with who've been doing this for like 30, 50 years, right?
Yeah.
They've seen a lot of transitions, they've seen a lot of market
Cycles.
turns,
Yeah.
right? So I think the biggest thing is, what I learned anyway is not everything can last forever or go at the same pace as forever, or just think everything always gradually goes up. I'm not saying it always has to go spike like it did
Yeah.
back in 22 or whatever, 2020, but like just be aware that things can change. So
Yeah.
well, I think one of the
And
hurt
change very quickly. So
100%, and
yeah.
that can and depending how long your project is, or your outlook is for whatever it is
Yeah.
that you're doing, that could have an extreme impact on your bottom line
Yeah.
or outcome. Um so yeah, that's just one aspect to it for sure, is just a large scale of things can shift. So
Yeah.
I think multiple exit strategies was one thing that I really focused on early on, and
Yeah.
then two, just you learn as you go, but you can hit a lot of hurdles during a renovation. So I think for that, definitely keep more contingency than you think that you will need.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's smart. I mean, there's definitely some people I spoke to about the projects that they had going on during the pandemic, and there was
Mm.
labor shortages, the cost of lumber went through the roof. There's all these budgetary needs and projects that skyrocketed. So what worked and what was going to be profitable, they've had to go back to the drawing board. And in some cases, maybe that's completely revamping things just based on what's happened. So I think you've got to be very strategic and, reach out for support. Like, don't just wait till it's too late. And I think sometimes people are just kind of procrastinating and hoping things are going to turn around, and then it's be insolvent or bankrupt. So you got to be very, very careful, especially if you've got other people's capital in the mix as well. But when you look back at some of the things that you've done, is there anything that stands out to you as something that you're most proud of?
I think, well, a couple of things. I think I'm just proud that I've actually taken action. I think, you always think you could take more. I'm definitely a consumer of info and podcasts, and probably too much to my default, but at the end of the day, I've been taking action. I've learned a lot along the way. So I'm proud of the progress I've made, I think, but also I'm proud that I've been able to share, and, even at a smaller capacity, my niche is, first responders. It's not a smaller niche compared to, the whole net, I guess you could kind of look at it. So I'm happy and proud to hear the feedback sometimes I get where, thanks for, your podcast, or thanks for coaching me. I've been able to take that first step, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Now we're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Welcome to the Wealth Club, an exclusive community dedicated to elevating your journey towards financial freedom, well-being, and success. The journey to 1% starts here. Join like-minded leaders and commit to growth for the mind, body, bankroll, and soul. Learn all the proven techniques to change your life forever with direct access to a massive team of more than 10 tried and true experts. Moreover, members enjoy priority access to investment opportunities, job openings, and partnerships within the community. For just $1 a day, members gain entry to specialized forums covering a wide spectrum of fields, discover diverse income streams, new opportunities, collaborations, and employment. Partake in weekly Zoom calls with our team and join monthly live Q&A sessions. Compete and win cash prizes. Active members top the leaderboard for monthly rewards. Ready to get started? Join today to unlock your true potential. To sign up, go to scroll.com/The Wealth Club. I value transparency, integrity, and trust. If you choose to work with me, you can be assured that business will be conducted honestly and openly. Time is of the essence in this industry, so you can expect nothing short of quick, clear communication from me. I'll keep you informed every step of the way so you feel comfortable throughout this entire process. Our homes are where we eat, sleep, relax, and play. My clients' best interests are at the heart of everything I do. And with this said, my service to you doesn't end when the transaction does. As your realtor, I'll not only help you buy and sell your property, I'll also educate and support you along the way. I want to help you fulfill your goal of home ownership and become your trusted real estate resource for life. I can't wait to share my passion for real estate with you. More importantly, find you the perfect house to turn into your home. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in Durham Region or Toronto? Let's chat. Is the real estate investment you're considering a gold mine or a landmine? Introducing PropertyCast.io, the black magic of real estate investment analysis. Use PropertyCast.io to analyze and underwrite real estate investment opportunities, unlock the potential of a property, and share professional reports. Jordan McGregor is a commercial realtor and founder of PropertyCast.io. He identified the need to simplify and streamline how properties are underwritten to help investors make better decisions and sound investments. PropertyCast.io is a best-in-class purpose-built tool for real estate investment analysis. To find out more, go to PropertyCast.io, and to sign up, click the link in the show notes. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Hey everybody, welcome back to Inspire to Invest. We've got Dave Knight here with us today. He's a full-time police officer. He's also a real estate investor, podcast host, and coach. I don't know if that made any sense. Coach
Yeah,
and
it did.
host.
I think you hit them all there.
So,
I gotta
so
get
he's
more.
joining us to talk about his experience, how he started investing in real estate. Now he's helping others do the same. I guess one of the questions that I always like to ask is, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you as a real estate investor so far?
Oh, the craziest? I mean, I think just being a part of the last couple years, I think it's been a real eye opener. I
Yeah,
think, like I mentioned it just there before the break, where things can change on a dime. So I
yeah,
think being a part of that change on the dime, like really, and I was deep into it at the time. So,
yeah,
you had to move quick. You had to make some fast decisions.
yeah,
The writing was on the wall a little bit, but sometimes you get a little naive thinking that things are okay. So I think,
yeah.
I think that would definitely be the biggest one for sure.
Yeah, no, that's big. Now you talked a little bit about some of the real estate education that you had invested in. What would you say is some of the best advice that you've received?
Man, there's so many. I think early on, I think it was having multiple exit strategies. So going in, I mean, there's so many variables that I could talk about, but I think that was the biggest one where um, I was, and I'll give you a perfect example of where I didn't follow that rule towards the end. So I got in. I was always doing multifamily, BRRRRs and flips. So I had that second exit strategy where
Yeah,
I was aiming to flip it. However, if things turned, I was able to refinance it, hold on to the property, and it was cash
yeah,
flow. Toward the end, I had a couple single family flips. And that was when things changed real quick. And I didn't have that second exit strategy where I could, even Airbnb was always an option. But then
yeah,
again, things changed. The city started cracking down. They didn't want
yeah.
Airbnbs. It became very saturated. So, there's
Gotta wreck everything.
yeah, I know what the heck. So anyway, just I think just brutally honest is just you got to hedge your risk, and I think just being
Yeah,
smart at the beginning before you even make your first steps. And part of that is actually getting coached and getting mentored and like paying for education and paying for that other people's experience, so you don't make
yeah,
those stupid mistakes early.
yeah. And I think that's something really important and something I've thought a lot about reflecting on some of the challenges that I've had in the last little while. Is just, you kind of have to set your boundaries for yourself and stick with them. Because I feel like
Mhm.
anytime I've compromised on those, like
Yep.
those have been the ones that have kind of, as of late, had some issues. And just not get too comfortable with any particular strategy. Like never let up on, don't think you know somebody, don't think that you need to ease up on your due diligence. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of things I've learned now, even just in terms of like how I can really evaluate things more appropriately, maybe compared to how I would have before. And you kind of learn all those through the challenges that may come up. But I think
Mhm.
that's very, very sound advice. Just
Yep.
never to ease up on those things, right? Like
Yep.
don't get too comfortable because you've got to be ready for when things change, right? And you've got to protect yourself and manage that risk appropriately.
And
Uh,
I just want to add to that if you don't mind. It's
yeah,
just
of
I
course.
feel like the golden rule of that, comfort creates discomfort in time, and you can become very comfortable in the process that you're
We're
doing. And
too
that's why,
trusting. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
discipline, and even in your process and your procedures, you kind of become. It's just like and I always relate it back to health too. You can go through a good stretch of like dietary, working out, eating right, and you start leaning up, you feel great, and then you start getting a little bit comfortable. Summer comes, you start drinking more, eating more, having fun more, maybe not
Yeah.
sleeping as much, and then your body starts wearing down, and you're like, if I just stuck to my principles or I stuck
Yeah.
to my discipline,
Yeah.
even that doesn't
Sticking
have
to
to
the
be
fundamentals.
extreme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you stay consistent, and it's
Yeah.
those up and downs that kind of hurt you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, how would you say real estate investing has changed your life?
Oh man, it's changed everything. I think my financial awareness, I think my personal development through, my journey of real estate, getting exposed to people who think differently. Um, I think just having this type of conversation I never had before. Being able, there's like the mentality side of things, the financial awareness, but there's also like the fiscal side of things. I
Yeah.
can do things that I normally can't do on a normal paycheck.
Yeah.
Um, the ability to have a peace of mind down the road where I'm not relying on a pension. And I know that might sound crazy to some people because they don't have pensions, but
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who that's all they rely on. And then, I got buddies in the States that had to come out of retirement because their pension has gone insolvent or they have cutbacks. So
Yeah.
it's just like it's a reality. So I think
Yeah.
sharing that message is important. But yeah, I think those for sure.
Yeah. I think that's to add to that point. not even so much a pension that would go insolvent, but I think just the pace of inflation right now, like what
Yep.
people probably expected they could rely on in their retirement has really changed. Like, I mean, nobody expected, I never thought about food prices. Now I'm like, what the,
Yep.
like I really never thought about it too much. And in this last year, I'm just like floored at the cost of some of those things. So if you think about what it is now, well, what's it going to be like in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, right? So I
Right.
think that having a portfolio of real estate investments in whatever capacity that is, it suits your lifestyle is very important just because you may not be able to depend on things if you are an employee. And I think there's value to having that active income and having that as well and having the
Mhm.
benefits and all the things that go along with it. But I think it's very smart in today's climate to be thinking outside of that and just be planning to hedge inflation in a different kind of way.
I actually think it's a necessity. And to
Yeah.
be honest, I'm of the opinion that it's actually neglectful to not seek out other means of income and security.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it's outpacing our income, it's outpacing our increases. Our just cost of living, let
Yeah.
alone inflation in general,
Yeah. At
is
least here in Canada, because then you see some things in the States or in
yeah,
Europe and you're like, what?
it's
So
everywhere
it could
though.
just be here. I don't know.
I think home prices, if you look in the G7, I think we're the most expensive or the highest right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's even greater list, but everyone always defaults to the G7. But but it's the same way down the US right now. I mean, everyone's feeling it. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, cost of living is outpacing our increase in salary or income. So
Yeah.
when you said you nailed it on the head. It doesn't the pensions or your retirement plan doesn't have to go insolvent. Those are extreme examples.
Yeah.
However, at the end of the day, just do the math. I think it's back in 70 something. If you made 100 grand, that's like 350 now.
Yeah.
So, people at the police department or wherever are saying, oh, we make 100 grand, we make 100 grand, but it's like 100 grand is not a lot anymore. You
That
pay
was
your
good 10 years
taxes, you
ago.
pay
I
your
know we're
dues.
starting to sound like our grandparents.
Yeah,
I
exactly. Right.
remember when I
Yeah. Well,
was
I've been
young.
probably sounded like him a little too long, but yeah.
Gas was 60 cents a liter.
Walking
It's
hill
just
up both ways.
unfathomable.
Yep. Yep.
I know. I agree completely. Now, obviously, the name of this podcast is Inspired to Invest. So I always like to ask people if they have a quote that really motivates or inspires them.
Ooh, I think you can make a living or you can design a life, and I think that's one that's always stuck with me. That's a Jim Rohn quote, and I just always like that because it's so true. It's like I could go to work and I could punch in, punch out, and just live within my means, and there's nothing wrong with that. Except I want to experience more, I want to do more, and to be honest, to be more free and to experience more often is going to cost more money. So if
Yeah.
you want to learn and do more, unfortunately, you're going to have to crush overtime or, work
Yeah.
up the corporate ladder. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, we all go to work for a reason. So why not just pay a little more attention to how money works and how the
Yeah.
financial system works and leverage that?
Yeah. No, for sure. Now, is there anything else that you want to leave the audience with?
I think just take some time and invest in yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, I think you just got to take action. And I feel like everyone says that, but like you just got to
Just do
commit. And yeah,
it.
you
Yeah.
do. You just have to commit and take chances. And
Yeah.
sometimes that chance is just dedicating yourself to an hour a day or a couple hours a week or paying
Yeah.
for that coach that might seem too expensive,
Yeah.
but that might be the accountability you need to take that first step. And it's
Yeah.
just the first step. It's not You're not going to get from A to Z on the first coach or your first book or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just so yeah, I think just taking action and taking responsibility for it.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Now, for anyone that does want to get in touch with you and learn more about your coaching or your network, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, you can go on my website, 911wealthnetwork.com, or you can just email me, Dave at 911wealthnetwork.com.
Perfect. So we'll include that in the show notes below. Of course, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. For anybody that is watching or listening, thank you for your time as well. Make sure that you have followed along on social at Inspired to Invest podcast, and you've subscribed to this YouTube channel. And remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again. Thank you to the Wealth Club for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.